Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. Today, we're going to be talking about the concept of collective security. The concept of collective security. Now, the word collective security is a framework for formal commitment among groups of countries in order to protect, okay, in order to protect the security, and interest of the individual members within their joint share or sphere of interest. Okay, it is a way of avoiding, you know, it is a way of avoiding, you know, um, um, grouping powers, into opposing camps and refusing to draw dividing lines that would leave that would leave out powers. Okay. Now, the term collective security has been the principle of United Nations and the League of Nations. Okay. The theory of collective security can be traced to the Kantian philosophy of 1763 and the idea of perpetual peace, and also the Bosonian 14 points, which served as a precursor to the creation of the League of Nations in 1919. The League of Nations was established for the maintenance of internal peace and security, or for international peace and security, you know, giving room for the collective security. Okay, as has been talked about, Immanuel Kant actually, you know, Immanuel Kant's philosophy, is actually big on this collective security. According to Immanuel Kant, in his work Perpetual Peace, states that, perpetual peace. Now, the work states that the law of nations will be based on one federation of free states. Okay. Now, by employing collective security, any member state, is dissuaded from acting in a manner likely to threaten peace and thereby avoiding conflict. Okay, thereby avoiding conflict. So when we talk about, collective security, we are actually talking about a system of, a system in which the enemy is a threat. You understand? That is a system of collective security states that the enemy is a threat to regional and international peace, in which case the idea is that a threat to one nation is a threat to all nations. Okay. Now, in Article 5 of the United Nations, it calls for what? It calls on member states to assist one another, to assist another member if attacked. This article was invoked after the September 11, attacks on the United States, after which NATO, you know, after which NATO members provided assistance to the US war on terror in Afghanistan. But what is important is that collective security refers to, okay, a system and a structure in which, states have attempted to prevent wars globally, in which institutions such as the League of Nations and the United Nations were created based on the philosophical foundations. Okay, so according to McLean 1996, okay, collective security is a system for forming world peace and security through the concerted effort and agreement of all nations. Okay, it is a process of institutionalizing a permanent structure of the balance of power, which, the whole global community agrees to prevent and neutralize any act of aggression by any state on another sovereign state within the institutions. So collective security traditionally referred to the structure, okay, a structural security arrangement by states, okay, that make up for the League of Nations in order to protect the territorial integrity of states from perceived aggression. So when we talk about collective security, we are really referring to, you know, to a system in which, a threat to one nation is actually a threat to all nations, okay, that are actually involved in it. So what are the conditions, what are the assumptions, what are the basic assumptions of collective security? The basic assumptions of collective security. Now the assumptions of collective security are as follows, okay. Now, what is number one basic assumption of collective security? Now, the number one basic assumption of collective security is that a threat to a state is a threat to all states. A threat to a state is a threat to all states, in which case, whatever affects one state actually affects all states. Okay, now it is also an assumption of the balance of power. You understand? Because whatever affects one state in this equation affects all states. That is number one. Number two is that if all states are held in check, no state would win a war. And if no state wins a war, or if no state could win a war, then no state, okay, would start or threaten, okay, a war. Okay, so that is number two. Then number three, aggression anywhere at any time against any state is a threat to all states. Okay, so those are just the major things. Now, what are the conditions? What are the conditions for collective security? Now, the condition for collective security are as follows. Number one, all states must accept the status quo sufficiently to renounce the use of force for any purpose other than the defense of their own territory. That's number one. Then number two, all states must agree on a clear definition of aggression so that paralysis can be avoided if cases arises, okay, or if cases arise. Then number three, all states and especially the large powers must be willing to commit their own armed forces and or funds. Then number four, all states must actively prevent any breach of sanctions that might assist, the declared outlaw. Okay, so those are the things. Now, what are the mechanism? What are the mechanism for collective security? The first mechanism for collective security is the League of Nations. Don't forget that the League of Nations was actually established in 1919 during the Paris Peace Conference. Now, it was first organization of sovereign states designed, to be universal, okay, and devoted to the settlement of disputes and the prevention of war. Now, Article 10 of the League of Nations states that the members of the league, okay, undertake to respect and preserve as against external aggression, as against the external aggression of the territorial integrity and existing political independence of all states, within the league. That is number one. The number one mechanism is the League of Nations. Number two is the United Nations. Now, the United Nations is actually the successor of the League of Nations. The UN clearly states, in Article 51 of the Charter, okay, that nothing in the present Charter shall impair the inherent right of individuals or collective self-defense. It is an armed if an armed attack occurs, you understand, against a member state within the United Nations, you understand, until the Security Council has taken measures necessary to maintain international peace, any other country cannot actually go ahead. So it is actually the job of the United Nations Security Council to actually, tame or maintain international peace. Okay. Another mechanism is NATO. Of course, don't forget that NATO was created in 1949, and its founding document states that the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all. Okay. Then another, that's number four. Number four is the EU. The EU also is actually an organization that practices what is known as collective security. We also have the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, that is OSCE. You understand? Organization of what? Of Security and Cooperation in Europe. So all of these are actually mechanisms, for collective security. But what is a critique? The critique is that the realists ridiculed the idealists, saying that they are actually endangering peace by relying on utopian measures of controlled aggression. Now, the formation of ECOMOG, AUPSC, United Nations, Security Council, all of these are actually international organizations that, when the chips are down, they will not protect the national interest of even their member countries. To that extent, the criticism is that collective security cannot actually guarantee the security, okay, this in war situation of a country. Thank you very much.